Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. This is Dr. Bob, and this is the space and the place where we talk about things important to your soul. So today is a very special episode. I have two people with me who have been on the show before. One is my wife, Amy, and the other is Rev Rivera, who you just heard on episode 69 if you've been tuning in for a while. So we're going to try something that I don't know if this has ever been done before, but we'll give this a go. This is going to actually be a live reading, a spirit guide reading that we discussed in episode 69. And so we'll see how that goes. But we'll see if the spirit guides are with us. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to Reverend Rivera. And at the end of the episode, I'll do the usual things of asking you to support us and like us. But I won't do that now. We'll just get started.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning.
And Bob, thank you for inviting me back, even though I think I invited myself back for several episodes. And would you like to know why I did that?
Well, sure. Why did you do that?
Well, because just recently I read a book called The House of Hidden Meanings, and it's a book that was written by RuPaul, and he talked about one of the crucial parts of his journey, which was there was like a local television, in the days before podcasts where you'd go on like local closed circuit TV or whatever.
Right.
And he went once and then they liked him. So he just kept inviting himself back to do different things. So I took a note from his book and said, I will just come again.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to check that out. I'm definitely going to put a link to that book on my website. Always liked RuPaul.
It is a book mainly about his path to sobriety, and which I find a lot of inspiration in. But you have to hear about a lot of the excess. So
sure,
sure, as in everybody's sobriety story. So I wanted to give Amy a little clue about how these sorts of readings came into being, if that's okay.
That would be great.
Thank you. So, and we talked about this last time, from a small child, I knew I was a medium. And also that to me meant that I was seeing or communicating with people's loved ones. I didn't really shine to the idea so much as a teenager. As a child, I was okay with it. As a teenager, not so much. But then as an adult and after a very personal loss, I thought it was a good idea to align with my path because I was losing my hearing and I was told upstairs, look, you're not listening to us. And this is a physical manifestation of you not listening to us. So want to keep your hearing? Listen. So I did. And then, what I realized along the way was that I was always seeing angels. When I was little, I'm fairly certain that my mother said I referred to them as sparkly people. Because I see loved ones a little like I do you, but more opaque. So you have solidity because you are here in the physical. You have a physical body with which to anchor your spirit. And angels are only spirit, so they don't have a body to anchor them physically. There would be no reason for that. So they're only essence. And so I would see them as kind of like a glittery fractal of light, for lack of anything better to call it. And then at some point I learned that angels are beings of light, so then it made sense to me. When I saw them when I was little, loved ones always tried to communicate with me. Angels never did. And I just thought it was something pretty that I saw but never really needed to understand.
Okay.
When I got older and I started to do readings professionally, loved ones would come and then they would say, okay, well, now you can get a message from the angels. And I would say, how? Like, why? Like, I didn't get it. And as a matter of fact, because of my my origin story, like my mother being an Indian was raised pagan, and she was missionized and colonized in a way, and Catholicism kind of forced upon her in parochial school. So she wasn't a fan. And she married an Irish Catholic boy.
Oh my.
And so there was a little friction in the home surrounding, religious or spiritual decisions.
Yeah.
And so the official decision for our family was religion will not be discussed in the home. And I was allowed to ask questions about my own path, and I did. That was my person. I talked to my mom, but we didn't go to church. We didn't discuss divinity in any way, and I was obsessed with everything that I considered to be associated to divinity. So I would beg people to take me to church and stuff like that. But the only person who really would be like my grandma. And so in any case, church was the only place where I really, really, really felt a concentration of that sparkly energy. Okay. And to me, it just felt fizzy and effervescent, but still, they didn't try to talk to me ever. And so it was just this like illusory, evasive presence. But then I think it all came together when after communicating with loved ones, they were like, oh, here, now you're going to do this. And I was like, I don't get how they don't talk to me. And they were like, you'll just listen in a different way. And so I had to shift my perceptions to go from being more visually connected as I was with loved ones to a more emotional language that the angels use when they communicate with me. So normally what happens is, I like to say this to people when I'm doing any sort of a reading. It's like you have choices when you come to me as a reader, because I have the ability to read your loved ones and receive messages from them, your angels and receive messages from them, or to read your soul and get messages from your soul that's completely different than the way that your brain thinks. Like, we communicate on a very brainy level all the time. I got to do the laundry. I got to make sure that I pay for my ticket. I have to finish my education. The ego-centered stuff. But our soul operates on a whole different level. And it is communicating constantly. And most often without words. I mean, like, sometimes our voice boxes, our brains will channel the words of our soul, but more often than not, it is not. So I have learned to go beneath the words and to hear the emotions of any conversation. And that's also how the angels communicate. So when I set to receive a message from your angels, this is what happens. I love this part. Okay. So it's kind of like, okay, so I say a prayer. They're always with you. And when I begin to read, I then ask them to reveal themselves to me. And then what they do is they give me this like thought bomb of information. People like photobomb you. It's like that. It's like a thought bomb. So they just go, oh, okay, here, you want to know about Amy? Right? So
sounds overwhelming.
Not at all.
Oh.
Because so I have almost 60 years of experience and stuff for them to draw from. Right. All of my filters, all of my information, all of my memories, everything, my belief systems, everything that I know and hold dear and not so dear. But they use every cell of my being to communicate messages to me about something for you. something that they think is important for you to know. So I just pay attention with my whole soul. And so I might see stuff, I might hear stuff, I might know stuff, I might feel stuff, and mainly I feel stuff, but it would come along with a vision. So I will have a vision every time they want me to know something for you. So I'll receive it, and then I'll feel some way about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I gave Bob the example last time of like, I could say I have a vision of an apple, but if I have a vision of an apple, it might be different than a vision of an apple you might have. You might see like a yellow apple, with a stem, and I might see a red candy apple with a bite taken out. So apple could mean lots of things to different people visually. It could also mean different things to people symbolically, like, teaching, or New York City, or applesauce, or somebody's rustic kitchen, you know what I mean? Like, so it could mean lots of things symbolically. And then emotionally, I could feel excited about seeing that apple. I could feel dreadful about seeing the apple. So there's so many different layers of just one little thing that they give me, the visual and the way that I would feel underneath about it. And so I just pay attention with my whole soul, so that way I can be used as a vessel to communicate clearly whatever it is that the angels want to communicate.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Sounds like you'd be exhausted afterwards.
No. People say
energized?
that all the time. Yeah, the people go, doesn't that make you tired? And I'm like, no. Because, I'm so far from even being bougie. Like, I'm just a little Latin girl from the inner city. Like, just so regular. And so here's my vibration, and then here's the loved one's vibration, and then here's the angel's vibration. So I'm being lifted constantly so that I can talk to loved ones or to angels. And it is in some ways why I feel like I'm getting younger.
Yeah, I could see that, right?
Yeah, because they give you so much in those communications, and it just makes you feel like, what did I do to deserve this? You know what I mean? Like, how do I get so lucky?
So much gratitude then.
Yeah, so much gratitude. Yeah. I think my mom must have done really good things somewhere.
Well, I remember your mother was in the room during the last interview, and that was was really a nice thing for her to do, to come along.
I like to drag her everywhere I go, but sometimes she can't. Today she had doctor appointments.
Okay.
So or otherwise she'd be right there.
So do you need me to back out of the way so that my angels aren't conflicting with Amy's angels?
No,
No?
It does not work that way.
Okay.
So, they'll just communicate with me. It's not, there's no bleed through. If I was trying to read her soul, I would probably ask you to get out of the way, simply because I wouldn't want yours trying to overstep.
Yeah. Okay.
But angels are a little different, and they're a little bit more direct. So I'll let you know that I always like to begin with a prayer, okay? And then I will close my eyes for just a moment while I receive. And then I might write some things down if there are placements or whatever that I have to remember, or keywords that I have to remember, and because I've had a stroke and sometimes it's hard for me to remember. So if I need to make notes, I will, and then I'll show you, and then I'll tell you what. So everything that they give me will serve a purpose. In addition to that, the angels always know whether or not you will ask questions, and they will have embedded answers into the vision that they know either move, change, evolve. I mean, there's a synaptic part of all of this, which tells me that if there are changes, if it evolves, then that gives them the ability to show me how something turns out, or where the answers are to a certain thought process that you might have. And so they are absolutely brilliant that way, because I don't know that I could ever anticipate something like that ever, but I know that they do, and I know that they always want their entire purpose for being is to be of service to us, because being of service to us allows them to be of service to the Creator. And so a spirit guide is someone who helps to bring messages and guidance to us in this particular lifetime. A spirit guide is almost always an angel. It doesn't always work that way. It could be someone that you met in between lives who decided to sign up for this particular purpose. A spirit guide has to be a highly evolved individual. There are some times when it could be a long-lost family member, but they most certainly would have had to be in spirit when yours chose to come here for this incarnation. And so more often than not, the spirit guides are angels. And so once I get the image and everything, I will tell you where they showed me their light. And I call it a bloom. I don't know why, I just do. I'll say, this is where the bloom was, because, well, to me, it kind of looks like a flower, like almost like a light flower. And so I'll tell you where it was. I'll tell you about the colors of the bloom, because that would tell me why they chose you, like what they're working with you on in this lifetime. And if you want to know their name, I will tell you their name, because they'll tell me for you.
So how many spirit guides generally does a person have? And are they with you during your whole time here?
You have one primary spirit guide, and you can accumulate others based on the path of your work. I've seen people with many, and I like to look at that kind of stuff when I'm like watching television, the news and politicians and stuff like that, because it helps me assess their integrity and the course of their path, and that sort of thing. Trust me, if I see a particular politician with one guide, not getting my vote. Don't care what he's running for, or she, or whomever.
That's a great way to determine what direction to go in the polls when you go for election.
I think so.
Some of us just kind of say eeny, meeny, miny, mo at this point, but no, it's good.
I'm not a very political person. And my lack of, my dearest friend, her name is Susan. I have three, Susan and Deshelle and Danny. Like, I don't want to let anybody my trifecta be let down. Anyways, so Susan was my roommate in seminary school, and she was an AP history teacher, and so I'm called, what do they call, foreign born national. Like, I'm Americanized, but American history was not my thing. Like, I know more about Panamanian history because that's where I'm from, and my mother, and so my friend Susan will like say all this stuff like about American history and events and stuff. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I wish that I was more culturally informed, but it's just not my thing. This is my thing.
Right.
Yeah.
and she is a medium as well. And I'll be like, I don't know how you have room in there for all this stuff. Somehow she does. Brain capacity. Anyways, let's are you ready to do your thing?
I'm ready for the prayer.
Okay. So I'm going to say my prayer, then off we go.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you mind?
No, I just want to let the audience know there will be some silence.
Yes.
And
Thank you. Just a moment.
It's not an issue. It's intentional.
It's intentional. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to say my prayer out loud. God, as we open the door to communication in the unity of the Holy Spirit, the great I am, presence of the universe. I give thanks, for I know the word spoken will be filled with your love, truth, wisdom, and understanding of the highest. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so I'm going to say, do not judge my artistic ability because I'm a medium, not an artist. So I'm going to tell you that the angelic image that I was given was one of what looked like a paved lot, like a bigger than a sidewalk, but basically a sidewalk. And there was a crack in the sidewalk. And it was like I was watching you walking from behind further out into the sidewalk. There was a crack, and in the crack, in front of you were one daisy and one rose. The rose was growing up and kind of like curved towards the right. The daisy was curved towards the left. Thank you. And I watched you walk forward with one foot on each side of the crack, almost as if the crack was made out of something very detestable, or it was gaping open or something you were afraid to fall in. And I kind of laughed at that because it made you walk like kind of like Yosemite Sam, you know what I mean? Like that. And so then you came to stop right in front of the flowers, and then you picked up the rose, and then you picked up the daisy. And it was kind of like you were doing, eeny, meeny. And you were, and then you let the rose go, and you just took the daisy. And I like that. And then I remember thinking, okay, so now I have to figure out what all this means. So I'll start with my interpretation. The fact that I saw you walking away from me down what seemed like a really wide path tells me something about your belief system and your ability to be open and accepting, because a wide path would tell me that you're not narrow-minded. You're open and accept. Well, you're here today. You must be open and accepting. No, thank you. I don't want to talk to anything.
And I'm married to this guy too, so I got to be open and accepting.
Yes, that would. So I need to say you remind me a bit of Mr. Rogers, which I think is like the highest compliment someone could pay to someone.
He has lots of cardigans too.
Is that? Yeah. I love you even more now. And so I could see why it would be that. Well. Yeah, so you have just a very genuine and warm spirit. So, in any case, you are walking up here, so you were very, very careful not to step on the crack. So I'm going to determine what that is, and if I don't know what it is, then we will determine it later, because it will probably be revealed by one of your questions, okay? But I just knew that you were kind of like one foot on both sides of the fence. Okay. So that does mean that there's something there in your life where you're devoting a lot of your time to polarized sort of experiences. Okay. Now, when you got up to where the flowers were, I believe that the roses don't grow out of cracks in the sidewalks. They have to be tended to very carefully. And but there was a rose, and you did pick it, and then you cast it aside. And oh, I think I know what that is. Okay, hold on. And then the daisy, I mean, they do grow out of cracks in the sidewalks, and they're very beautiful. But what I think that the symbolism of both means that you have choices in your life. Yeah. The left side, the side about the future. Because as a reader, when we read things, we read it kind of like it's a timeline. And in like, remember high school math or wherever we would have learned about timelines? This is wherever you are right here. That's 0. That's right now. And then going off to the future would be that direction, to the left. So it kind of tells me, because look where the flower was. It was just a little bit ahead. That you've got some decisions to make, that they're showing me you've got some decisions to make. One about picking the rose, one about picking the daisy. You picked them both, okay? I believe that the rose has something to do with beauty of love, right? The beauty of life, the beauty of everything that's in your life. But then I think that in that moment, you realize the beauty of simplicity as well. And so you cast aside the rose, which tells me that you're picking simpler things. You're picking a more intentional and simple experience in your life. And so it's like the angels are letting me know that come maybe 6-8 months, something like that. Wait, no, I think it's a little bit longer than that, where you will be making some decisions to simplify your life even more. And I don't know yet what that will look like, but I believe that it has something to do with what these roses may symbolize to you, and we'll talk about that. Because this rose may be something like a standard that you have held for yourself, and I don't know what that could mean yet. And this daisy, which is what you ended up holding on to, I think really symbolizes the simplicity and the beauty of simplicity in your life. And so I will tell you that I know that the message that the angels were giving me was all about you getting to have an experience in your life where you're choosing to have more simple pleasure, more, I don't know if it's just, time to connect with yourself, with your own spirit, but maybe less service oriented, maybe less like I have to do this, I have to volunteer. Who volunteers on they have to? Well, I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what these things made me think of. And I tend to believe that when they give me messages like this, it might have something to do with patterns of behaviors in your life. Like you could have been telling yourself just recently, I want to simplify this, or I need to take this off of my agenda to make more time for things that are going to bring me more peace in my life. I believe that this message, this image, is an affirmation of that. But it's also about, it's also a testimony to the power and the force of your intention and your free will to choose so. Because if you have two things in your hand at any given moment and you're asked to make a decision, if one of them is out of alignment with your goal, you've got to not choose it, because otherwise you will not attain your goal. And so I believe that this might be one of those things. And also, daisies, you have to make a choice. Does it love me? Does it love me not? Right?
Right.
So there are lots of choices within choices in this image as well. So that's what it made me think of. What did it make you think of?
Well, I guess I'm thinking now about that crack in the sidewalk and what that, like I'm sort of straddling it and making sure that I don't step on it. So it's trying to figure out how that fits into.
Well, thank you. The crack in the sidewalk could mean someone's feelings. Like you might not want to hurt someone's feelings.
Like
it
step
could be,
on a crack, you'll break your mother's back, as a child, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there might be a situation that involves your mother where you don't want to do something wrong, or you don't want to make a choice that would take time away from her or something like that. That because you brought that up, I could certainly think that that's what it could mean.
Well, she's been gone for 22 years, but
okay.
I guess cosmically I could be
cosmically
doing something. Yeah, I don't know. That's
who do you sort of skirt feelings about, like, I don't want to upset this person or hurt this person or whatever, because this could be, an obligation or something that you consciously give a lot of thought to.
Yeah.
And you don't have to share it with me, but if you have awareness of it, I think that's important.
Well, I do in general have difficulty if I think I'm going to do something or say something that will be taking away from someone else. Like, just simple things. Like if I have to take a day off work and I feel like, well, if I do that, then I'm letting this person down because I take care of a person. So she doesn't want anybody else to take care of her. So what I do is I wait until the last minute to tell people, I just...
Hold on one second. Let me clarify. You're a caretaker?
Part-time.
Yeah, that's what it is. And that's probably how I felt when I was saying this about taking care of someone or not wanting to let them down. Yeah. And so if that is part of your professional calling, then it could have a lot to do with that, because most especially if there's a part of you that thinks, I take care of these people, I take care of everybody like I would take care of my own mother. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then that most certainly could be what this is about.
Yeah, she's the same age my mother would have been. She's 100. So, yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's pretty gosh darn old.
I know.
I mean, what an honor. But my dad always says, who wants to live that long? You have to bury every single person you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it, Dad. Like, I realize why loneliness is such a thing for when you get older, because you start losing
everybody.
Every single person.
Yeah, it is lonely, but yeah, there's probably a tie in there, just in terms of transferring some things about my mother to Charlotte and wishing that my mother had been able to live a life that allowed her to go on longer, and my caring for Charlotte is in some ways a way of caring for my mother. What
I know is that if you straddle that line long enough, you will walk like Yosemite Sam. So So it might be important for you to pay attention to the window of choice making, that is upon you. Not at this moment. It is a little bit down the road.
Right.
But so clearly there are going to be some options that are presented to you that will allow you to either, honor, the beauty and the love of this situation or the beauty and the love of you.
Right.
And not that you can't do both, but what I'm saying is that you may not be doing it well.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding better balance, because what I think is that spirit guides and angels, our spirit guides, bring spiritual guidance. And one of their favorite topics is balance and, lessons of intention, lessons of integrity, lessons of, whatever. There are lots of themes that angels use. However, balance is a really important one because we, most especially as women, have to find a delicate balance in, the honoring of others and self. And it is a really beautiful thing to be in this world and to be able to be of service to others, but never at the cost of our own well-being.
Right.
And so what I think here is that the daisy was curved to you, and the daisy to me is a symbol of that which can be super beautiful, but not given the correct conditions or not given conditions that one would think would allow them to thrive.
Right.
So you are the daisy, my dear.
I am the daisy.
Yes. Would you like to know where the angel was?
Yes.
Thank you. In the gleam that I saw, the gleam or the bloom in this case was on the flower. It was on the daisy, so it was like right here. Okay. So white, when a spirit guide presents themselves to me in white, that is the color of integrity. It's the color of mental clarity and nobility. And so they chose you or chose to work with you in this lifetime to lend you their strengths in these areas. So at any time that you were going to need to rely on those qualities, then they would present themselves to you as a support system and help you when the crossings are a little tough. So, and would you like to know their name?
Yes.
Thank you.
Audience, whenever there's silence, if you're not on YouTube, there's a drawing going on or a writing.
Thank you. Yeah, I always ask them to spell it out for me because I need that sort of assistance. So it's pronounced Sariel, Serielle.
Sariel.
Sariel. And I've noticed that many angel names have, so it could be Latin, Greek, or Aramaic roots. Mm-hmm. And so you would notice that like the some of the archangels that are listed in the Bible and stuff, it's Ael or
right.
Or Iel. Think about Uriel, Gabriel. So the Ael and Iel suffixes mm-hmm. on the words do generally tie to meaning of the light or from the light or some form of light reference. Mm-hmm. So in this case, I would say look up an angel name because it might give you an even more profound understanding of their reason for being and being with you.
Okay.
So I will give this to you because I don't want to throw it away.
So if I want to connect with my spirit guide, what is is this through meditation or how, Bob he says he communicates with his guides all the time. And I have not felt that experience. So
Oh,
I was just wondering what I need to.
excuse me.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm like tissue on me.
I know.
So, I am. I'm 100% sure that everybody has the ability to connect to angels.
I do too. I'm sure too.
And I think that just like anything else, you have to take steps,
Mhm.
you know? And just like if you want to learn how to play the piano, you know, you probably learn how to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star before you end up playing like, I don't know.
Some piano sonata written by some
Ex-
famous composer.
Right.
Right.
Right. My nephew, who is a piano, what do they call that? Virtuoso or something
Mhm.
like that. He was playing for me on Mother's Day. It was like his little gift to me. So I'm
Oh,
sitting
that's
in there
nice.
and I was like, play me something good. And he's like, like all this stuff. And I was like, what is that? He goes, I don't know. It just comes out of my head. I'm like, huh. I was like, do you ever use the piano books that I bought you? And he's like, I can't sight read. And I was like, what? And he was like, it slows me down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I can get that, dude. So there are, you know, there and he has been taking lessons since he was a little baby. You know, I go and I'm thinking to myself, how do you not sight read but take lessons?
Yeah,
You know,
right.
I think he's just so far beyond it, to be quite honest with you. But so I think for me, part of the process is I teach people how to connect with their spirit guides, and it involves a step process. Like, first, I help you learn to receive simple messages, colors, numbers, concepts. So concepts are what leads then into the emotional messages, and then learning how to put it all together like that
Mhm.
by infusing the colors and numbers and location, do you see what I'm saying,
Yeah.
of an entire message. So because not everybody is going to hear a spirit guide message that says, hey, guess what? We would really like you to give a call to so-and-so. But I believe that spirit guides are more conceptual because they're dealing with the patterns that we as people hold, you know, worries or things that might limit us or what have you. And so it's very easy for them to speak in symbols and concepts, because then that helps us address the patterns or the bigger picture in our life, as opposed to perhaps the one or more transactional things that we might be doing at a time. So
Right.
it's I think it's an easy enough thing to learn, and it doesn't necessarily require that you sit in meditation for hours a day or anything like that. It's just that you have to learn how to quiet your mind for a moment, because that is what and it might not even be just the mind, it's the heart. So it's learning how to quiet down your being, so that way. My teacher used to say, I attended the Fellowships of the Spirit Seminary in Lilydale, New York, and Elaine Thomas, the foundational teacher there, was my teacher. And I love to tell the story just because it's kind of cool. She's Elaine was a student of the Reverend Sandy Edith Wendling, who was the student of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So I'm a fourth generation spiritualist in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle line. And
what a famous lineage.
exactly.
My goodness.
And Elaine went to Spirit last January, and she was one of my favorite people. I was not one of her favorite people. She thought that I was persnickety, and I famously tell that story now. So, but she would say that in order to do mediumship, we needed to create a serenity inside upon which Spirit would want to alight. So we needed to be calm enough to notice the ripples that spirit people would put there. They don't teach angelic communication there. They teach mediumship. So I know we took an angel-related class at one point or another, but it was the School of Healing and Prophecy was about spiritualist healing, which is akin to Reiki,
Mm-hmm.
and then also about mediumship. So we learned how to communicate with loved ones. So in a formatted and regulated and, testable way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
You've given me a lot to think about and to ponder as I quiet myself and just allow that.
May I share one other little piece of information that I don't think I mentioned before?
Sure.
So, the wisdom of flowers says that flowers are given one job in this lifetime: grow and bloom. That's it. That's all they have to do. And I think so. I write a weekly channeled love note from the afterlife. It's called Love Notes from the Afterlife. And one of the very first ones that I wrote. So what I do every week is I pick a quote, like a famous person's quote, and then I channel people's ancestors giving me a collective message about the quote. So first I tell you what I think. Oh, this is kind of funny. I did this because I chose this because I love roses or whatever. But Anais Nin's quote that says, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was greater than the risk it took to bloom." Right. And so I remember writing in that article, and this is like, I don't know, 250 articles ago. I remember writing that when a flower's, chromosomal, like its DNA, like its entire genetic code tells it to come here and do one thing: open.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wouldn't it be that wonderful if that's all we had to do was to worry about come here and do one thing to open, right? Just the one job. And so sometimes when I see roses, yes, of course, roses are a beautiful symbol of amorous love, but they are also a symbol to me about coming here to do what we were supposed to do. And the fact that you set the rose down and chose the daisy may mean that you're choosing to be done. You came here, the rose was bloomed. Maybe you set down the bloom. Maybe you're like, okay, I did my job now. I can now choose me. Daisies are just as beautiful as roses. They just look a little different. They're simpler.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective as well. Yes.
There's always a million perspectives.
Right. From one picture, yes, you can get many different.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Right.
And I believe that that's why, at least for me, I think that's why they use that language with me. I'm sure that for other people, like if you invited Lily Leonardi here, who went to Shanksville on after 9/11, she's the one who saw all the angels in the field and wrote the book Behind the Shield. I'm sure that he's writing that down too. I love him. So I'm sure that her experience with angels is quite different. I don't know if they communicate with her or if she just saw them and was inspired.
Right.
But if even just a view will inspire you to change your life. She was an FBI agent.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Yes. And so, her experience is somewhat notable and fascinating. And so I believe that just the mere experience, remember that whole television show with whatever her name was?
Yeah, I loved that show.
Touched by an Angel. That's one touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, to get a message from them can be absolutely life-changing.
Yeah.
If you are open to receiving the message and the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that they can use, because they can remember things in my memory that I can't remember. And so they'll draw and I'll be like, wow, I haven't thought about this for 30 years. This is so cool. So it's literally they're using every single thing inside of me to help lead or guide someone to know that you'll be okay, or or consider this, or embrace this, or it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you for letting me do it.
Well, I thank you for doing it. This has been very, very helpful.
I'm so glad.
And interesting.
Well, at this point in the podcast, I usually ask you to leave the audience with some words of wisdom, but I think you just did. But I'll leave you that opportunity if there's anything more that you wanted to leave the audience with.
Yes. Please go to my website at revmarjorierivera.com. I'm sure there will be a link to it. And sign up for my newsletter. And then that way you would know if there was a class you wanted to take, or if you wanted to have a private session, or you could read my weekly love note from the afterlife. So that would be awesome.
Well, I noticed from the busy calendar schedule you have, and I know that you don't like to plan more than 2 weeks out and have someone keep your calendar for you.
Right?
But I did see that on July 11th and July 18th, you were doing 2 dinner shows, one at the Black Dog Winery and the other at J&D Cellars Winery in Washington, PA. This podcast may air after those events, but even if that's the case, just go to your local winery and you may run into Reverend Rivera. And on that note, I'd just like to encourage you to like us, to subscribe on YouTube, and maybe even support us on Patreon. Until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.